I'm Mayor Jen Grigoraitis, and welcome to the Melrose Minute, where we bring you news you can use from City Hall. And I'm here today with Kathryn Armata, our Treasurer-Collector. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for being here. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about the city's bond program, which is a really important part of how we manage our debt. Can you tell people what a bond program is and what that entails?
Sure, and thank you for having me here. The bond program is basically the management of all of the debt the city has sold in the financial markets to raise cash for capital projects and the projected debt costs that we're considering taking on in the future for new projects. So a couple of things are important. One is having a solid credit rating, and two is having a forecasting methodology. Last year, Melrose was pleased to be reaffirmed by Standard & Poor's as a AA+ credit. We aspire to break into that AAA range, but we are very pleased to be recognized as a strong credit in the markets. Strong ratings are attractive to bond buyers, and it lowers the overall cost of interest that we have to pay on the bond.
So that bond rating is hugely important because it's impacting our bottom line. And kudos to you and your team for making sure that we're AA+, and I look forward to us getting to AAA. I know we'll get there. Can you talk a little bit about how the program is managed? Who do we use? What does that mean to manage a bond program?
We work very closely with Hilltop Securities, who is our municipal financial advisor, and we use a comprehensive model that they have developed to manage the program. The model tracks the principal and interest payments for the next 30 years, but importantly also we use the model to forecast principal and interest payments on future debt that we're contemplating. Either this has been approved by City Council as a new project, it's moved up in queue on the CIP list, and we do leave a little bit of capacity for unplanned expenses. Every bond that we issue has to have a purpose, and it has to have planned expenditures. The ability to forecast is essential, so we don't overextend our ability to pay debt at the expense of other city expenses.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Because not overextending our resources sounds like an important thing that we want to make sure we don't do. So what are the limits on how much debt we can issue at a time?
Okay, the city issues debt for a variety of reasons, and it repays it out of multiple pockets. The piece of the general fund, which is our main account, the piece of the budget allocated to debt payments is 5%. We refer to it as the 5% limit, or it's called non-exempt debt. It's non-exempt from the limit. The policy of 5% of budgeted revenues is within the recommended range of the Division of Local Services as best practices. And by capping the maximum at the 5%, we ensure the general fund isn't cash poor because of debt obligations, and that we'll have the means to pay the city's fixed expenditures and other items that don't require borrowing to pay for them. As the debt matures, as the budget grows, then we have additional capacity that we can work with. So some of the projects that we have funded through non-exempt debt over the last couple of years include the salt shed, road maintenance, a ladder truck, basically large dollar capital expenditures that just don't fit within the general fund.
Okay, great. And so we plan for that 5%, and this is a beautiful community, but also a community that's been around for a while, so we have a lot of capital needs, a lot of buildings that people can walk around and see need work. So when we're planning for that 5%, do we plan to use every single penny that's available, or do we leave a little bit of room?
We leave a little bit of room. We forecast conservatively, and we leave capacity for emergency needs and the opportunities. So one of the opportunities we recently were able to take advantage of is when the library got the grant several years ahead of time of where we thought it was going to be. So we were able to take on that project. Another example is the trash carts. They're a necessity under this new contract. If we had budgeted to that 5%, we wouldn't have been able to fund those projects in the manner that we are.
Right, and so then in the example of the trash carts, which we need for this coming July, if we hadn't had that capacity in our debt program, we would have been looking to reduce the overall budget accordingly to pay for that purchase. So it's really great that we have that flexibility. I know it's also really important as we think about taking on new projects, one of which is the public safety building, which was approved by a debt exclusion. So can you talk a little bit about what is a debt exclusion and then how this project impacts our bond program?
Sure. The city has other debt aside from the 5% non-excluded debt. We have enterprise funds for water, sewer, Mount Hood, ambulance. So any debt that is issued on behalf of those funds is repaid through the revenues of those funds. The other type of debt that we have is called excluded debt. Now, excluded debt has to be passed by vote on a ballot. And if it is passed, we still have to follow the same protocols, get an order before the city council, have the city council approve it, and follow all of the legal steps that we're required to do under a bonding. The cost of repaying excluded debt is not from the general fund. The cost of it is allocated by the assessor over the taxable properties in the city for the duration of the bond. Once the bond matures, it's added as an additional tax. Once the bond matures, then that additional tax is removed from the tax bill. So right now, we have excluded debt on the books related to the middle school, and that will fully mature in 2029. And we are working on the early stages of the bonds for the public safety building project, and we'll be doing that for several years.
Okay. So that debt, while it's not a part of our 5%, our ability to get a good rate on that bond for the public safety, which is a significant project, $130 million, is going to be determined by our bond rating. So the stronger our credit, sort of the better return on investment we get for taxpayers on this project.
Yes.
Great. It's really important to know. Anything else you want to tell us and the residents of Melrose about bonding?
Just that there are a lot of rules. We have to follow rules.
I think that's a good thing.
Yes, from having a purpose to repaying on a timely basis to post-issue compliance, documentation and reporting. A bond isn't just something you can say we need to raise money, let's raise it, rates look good. There are a lot of complicated rules, so we use our partners at Hilltop Securities, our bond counsel at Hinckley Allen, and other partners to make sure that we're in compliance and we don't do anything to jeopardize the tax-exempt status of our bonds.
That's really important, and I think it also highlights that to get to the point where we're seeking a bond requires a lot of work by a lot of city departments. We're talking engineering, planning, the mayor's office, the council, that there's a lot of steps before we get to that point where we're going to market.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you for your leadership on that and to your team, and thank you for being here today to talk about bonding.
I appreciate it.
Have a great day.